It's a lazy Saturday afternoon, and Jerry the mouse is wandering around the kitchen, searching for food. He's got his eyes on a giant block of cheese sitting on the counter. Little does he know that Tom, the ever-watchful house cat, is also eyeing the cheese with a mischievous plan brewing in his head. As Jerry makes his way toward the cheese, he suddenly hears a soft clink behind him. A wire trap Tom has set up with a simple string and pulley, connected to a bucket of water on a high shelf. Jerry freezes, noticing the trap just in time, and with quick thinking, he leaps up to snip the string. The bucket topples over, but instead of landing on Jerry, it comes crashing down on Tom, drenching him from head to paw. Determined not to let Jerry get away, Tom launches into action. He chases Jerry around the kitchen, slipping and sliding on the freshly wet floor. They zoom under tables, around chairs, and into cabinets. Each time Tom gets close, Jerry uses his quick wits to dodge him, leading Tom into more chaos. At one point, Tom decides to get high-tech and pulls out a remote-controlled toy car. He attaches a piece of cheese to the car and sets it off to lure Jerry out of hiding. But Jerry is one step ahead. He reprograms the car, sending it speeding straight back to Tom, who ends up getting tangled in the wires. Their antics eventually lead them into a food-filled brawl as they knock over shelves, send flour bags flying, and even cause an explosion of tomato sauce that leaves them both covered from head to toe in red splatter. Just when it seems like Tom has the upper hand, he slips on a banana peel Jerry left on the floor and once again ends up face first in a pie. In the end, Jerry escapes with his prize, the piece of cheese he was after all along. He sneaks away to his little mouse hole, leaving Tom in a daze, covered in pie, flour, and splashes of tomato sauce. As Tom wipes the last bit of pie from his face, he glares at Jerry's hiding spot, silently vowing to catch that sneaky little mouse in the next episode. But for now, Jerry settles down to enjoy his cheese, grinning at the chaos he's left behind. Title card. To be continued. The kitchen is quiet, bathed in morning light. Tom is curled up near the stove, taking a quick cat nap. But his rest is soon interrupted by a faint squeak as Jerry tiptoes out of his mouse hole. The little mouse sniffs the air, picking up the aroma of a fresh cheese while sitting on the counter. Jerry's eyes light up with excitement, and he knows he has to be stealthy. Tom is never far behind. Jerry grabs a tiny piece of string and ties it to a wooden spoon leaning against the counter. He uses the spoon like a catapult, flinging himself up onto the counter with surprising grace. As he tiptoes closer to the cheese, he feels triumphant. But just as he reaches out to grab it, Tom's trap springs into action. Tom, who had been watching with one eye open, yanks a rope that causes the cheese to be snatched away just as Jerry touches it. Jerry looks up in shock as the cheese is lifted into the air, dangling right out of his reach. Tom appears on the counter, grinning from ear to ear, and winks at Jerry as if to say, "Better luck next time." Not one to be easily deterred, Jerry thinks fast. He pulls out a tiny jar of pepper from his hiding place, pops off the lid, and throws a handful of it into Tom's face. Tom lets out a mighty sneeze, shaking the counter and accidentally flinging the cheese straight into the air. It bounces around the kitchen like a pinball, with both of them scrambling after it. The cheese lands on a high shelf, and Tom starts climbing the pantry shelves like a ladder. As he's about to grab it, Jerry cuts the bottom shelf with a butter knife, causing Tom and everything else on the shelves to come crashing down. A cascade of flour bags bursts open on top of Tom, leaving him a white, powdered mess with only his eyes visible. Just as Tom is about to grab Jerry, Jerry dashes away, sliding under the fridge. He pokes his head out, sticking his tongue out at Tom. Infuriated, Tom dives after him but gets his head stuck under the fridge. Jerry, seeing an opportunity, ties Tom's tail to a kitchen whisk, which is resting on the counter edge. Then Jerry gives the whisk a gentle nudge, sending it and Tom flying across the kitchen like a boomerang. Tom tries to steady himself, but the whisk spins him in circles, landing him upside down in the fruit bowl. After dusting himself off, Tom decides to try a more advanced approach. He pulls out a remote-controlled toy truck he's modified with a spring-loaded net trap. He tapes a chunk of cheese to the back of it, knowing Jerry won't be able to resist. Sure enough, Jerry is drawn to the smell and, after looking around for any signs of danger, sneaks up to the cheese. But just as he's about to grab it, Tom presses a button on the remote and the net springs up, trapping Jerry. Tom cackles in victory, finally thinking he has caught his pesky nemesis. But Jerry has one last trick up his sleeve. Using a tiny nail he keeps in his tail fur, he pokes a hole in the net and wriggles free. Before Tom realizes what's happened, Jerry jumps onto the truck, grabs the remote, and sends it speeding toward Tom. As Tom frantically runs to avoid the oncoming truck, he ends up slipping on spilled olive oil, flying headfirst into a bowl of mashed potatoes. He emerges from the bowl, dazed, with mashed potatoes piled on his head like a chef's hat. In a last-ditch attempt to catch Jerry, Tom leaps for him with a rolling pin. Tom's reinforcements. After another embarrassing defeat, Tom decides it's time to call in some help. He sneaks into the closet, where he finds a manual called Advanced Mousetrapping Techniques. Thumbing through the book, he comes across a section on teamwork and decides to recruit Butch, his streetwise feline friend, to help him catch Jerry. Butch arrives with a mischievous grin, ready to outsmart the little mouse. The two cats high-five and strategize. They come up with an elaborate plan to corner Jerry in the kitchen. With Butch on the lookout and Tom in position, they set up multiple traps, including mousetraps hidden under cheese, bowls rigged to fall, and even a catapult fashioned from a spatula and rubber bands. A bigger chase begins. Jerry, being the clever mouse he is, notices the new traps almost immediately. He grins, sensing that Tom has brought in backup. Jerry knows he'll need to be extra sneaky to outwit both cats this time. He first tries a classic trick. He ties a string to a piece of cheese and lets it dangle just out of Butch's reach. Butch, thinking he's about to snag the prize, pounces, only to be yanked backward as the cheese is pulled away. Jerry laughs from his hiding spot and gives the string another tug, leading Butch to chase the cheese in circles until he's dizzy and collapses in a heap. Now, it's Tom's turn to make his move. Armed with a fly swatter, he waits by the fridge, where he expects Jerry to pass by. But Jerry, being aware of his surroundings, flips the kitchen light switch off and darts around the room in the dark. Tom swings wildly, hitting everything but Jerry, until the light flicks back on, revealing Tom tangled in his own traps, with mouse traps on his tail and the fly swatter wrapped around his head. The blender blunder. Frustrated, Tom and Butch decide to corner Jerry using one of the kitchen's gadgets, a blender. They set it up with the lid off, hoping to scare Jerry into jumping inside, so they can trap him. They dangle a string of cheese near the blender's rim and hide behind the counter, waiting for Jerry to fall into their trap. But Jerry isn't so easily fooled. He sneaks around and, with a quick flick of his tail, turns on the blender while Tom and Butch are still leaning over it. The blender whirs to life, startling both cats. In their confusion, they accidentally knock the blender off the counter, and it lands with a splat, spraying smoothie ingredients all over them. Now covered in fruit and yogurt, the cats look even more ridiculous. Butch shakes his head, clearly questioning why he agreed to help, while Tom glares at Jerry's hiding spot, knowing the mouse is laughing at them. The ultimate trick. Realizing they need to outsmart Jerry rather than rely on brute force, Tom and Butch set up their final trick, a fake mouse hole with a huge trap hidden inside. After another embarrassing defeat, Tom decides it's time to call in some help. He sneaks into the closet, where he finds a manual called Advanced Mousetrapping Techniques. Thumbing through the book, he comes across a section on teamwork and decides to recruit Butch, his streetwise feline friend, to help him catch Jerry. Butch arrives with a mischievous grin, ready to outsmart the little mouse. The two cats high-five and strategize. They come up with an elaborate plan to corner Jerry in the kitchen. With Butch on the lookout and Tom in position, they set up multiple traps, including mousetraps hidden under cheese, bowls rigged to fall, and even a catapult fashioned from a spatula and rubber bands. Jerry, being the clever mouse he is, notices the new traps almost immediately. He grins, sensing that Tom has brought in backup. Jerry knows he'll need to be extra sneaky to outwit both cats this time. He first tries a classic trick. He ties a string to a piece of cheese and lets it dangle just out of Butch's reach. Butch, thinking he's about to snag the prize, pounces, only to be yanked backward as the cheese is pulled away. Jerry laughs from his hiding spot and gives the string another tug, leading Butch to chase the cheese in circles until he's dizzy and collapses in a heap. Now, it's Tom's turn to make his move. Armed with a fly swatter, he waits by the fridge, where he expects Jerry to pass by. But Jerry, being aware of his surroundings, flips the kitchen light switch off and darts around the room in the dark. Tom swings wildly, hitting everything but Jerry, until the light flicks back on, revealing Tom tangled in his own traps, with mousetraps on his tail and the fly swatter wrapped around his head. Frustrated, Tom and Butch decide to corner Jerry using one of the kitchen's gadgets, a blender. They set it up with the lid off, hoping to scare Jerry into jumping inside, so they can trap him. They dangle a string of cheese near the blender's rim and hide behind the counter, waiting for Jerry to fall into their trap. But Jerry isn't so easily fooled. He sneaks around and, with a quick flick of his tail, turns on the blender while Tom and Butch are still leaning over it. The blender whirs to life, startling both cats. In their confusion, they accidentally knock the blender off the counter, and it lands with a splat, spraying smoothie ingredients all over them. Now covered in fruit and yogurt, the cats look even more ridiculous. Butch shakes his head, clearly questioning why he agreed to help, while Tom glares at Jerry's hiding spot, knowing the mouse is laughing at them. Realizing they need to outsmart Jerry rather than rely on brute force, Tom and Butch set up their final trick, a fake mouse hole with a huge trap hidden inside. The grand comeback. After cleaning himself off and accepting his temporary defeat, Tom is determined to make one final attempt. He takes a deep breath and returns to the drawing board, planning the most elaborate trap yet. He goes to the garage, rummaging through old supplies until he finds an assortment of odds and ends, springs, rubber bands, pipes, and even a few fireworks left over from a holiday. His eyes light up. This plan will be his masterpiece. Tom's ultimate Rube Goldberg machine. Back in kitchen, Tom gets to work building a massive, complex contraption that stretches from the countertop to the floor and all the way to Jerry's mouse hole. This Rube Goldberg-inspired machine is a series of connected traps, with each part triggering the next. Tom is certain that this time, Jerry won't be able to escape. Here's the setup. A piece of cheese is tied to a string at the start. When Jerry touches it, it triggers a pulley system that releases a rolling pin. The rolling pin rolls down a ramp, hitting a lever. The lever releases a toy hammer, which swings down to hit a bell. The bell's ring sends a chain of dominoes falling, leading to a small cannon loaded with a suction cup. The cannon fires the suction cup, pulling the net across the mouse hole, trapping Jerry inside. Tom stands back, admiring his work, and gives the contraption one final test to make sure every piece works perfectly. Everything is set. Now all he needs is Jerry. Jerry takes the bait. Jerry, smelling the cheese, pokes his head out. It's nighttime. The kitchen is quiet, and Tom is lying in his basket, staring at the ceiling, frustrated from his repeated losses. He recalls every moment Jerry outsmarted him and how each plan has fallen apart spectacularly. With a new spark of determination, Tom decides he'll launch one last plan, a grand, foolproof scheme that Jerry will never see coming. Tom spends the entire night studying, building, and plotting. He creates an elaborate blueprint covering every possible route Jerry might take, accounting for every trick the mouse has ever used. He rigs each kitchen appliance, from the toaster to the blender, setting them up to work together in perfect sync. The entire kitchen is transformed into a maze of traps, with every pot, pan, spoon, and plate in place. Tom even sets up a series of pressure plates on the floor, each one triggering a different part of his machine when stepped on. As the first rays of morning sun peek through the window, Tom finishes his masterpiece and hides in his designated control room spot, a cupboard stocked with buttons and levers for him to control every trap from above. A giant chunk of cheese sits on a silver platter in the middle of the kitchen floor. It's almost too perfect, glowing in the morning light. Jerry wakes up, sniffing the air, and can't believe his luck. But as he looks around, he notices that the kitchen seems different. Pots and pans are stacked just a bit too neatly, and he spots tiny wires running along the walls. His instincts kick in, and he realizes Tom must be watching from somewhere nearby. He decides to play it safe, carefully testing his steps, but Tom notices and activates his traps. The dark of night, Tom's final plan. The kitchen is quiet again, and Tom lies awake, analyzing every detail of his failed attempts. This time, he's convinced he needs something truly ingenious, something that will surprise even himself. Here calls an old family heirloom, the cat's eye amulet, rumored to bring clarity and heightened focus to any feline hunter who possesses it. Tom digs through an old drawer, finds the amulet, and places it around his neck, feeling ready for the ultimate showdown. Inspired, Tom decides to convert the entire house into a high-stakes labyrinth of traps and puzzles. This time, it's not just about catching Jerry, it's about testing his own limits as a hunter. With his newly focused mind and energy, Tom works through the night, turning the house into a fortress of challenges designed specifically to match Jerry's cunning. Tom's castle of traps. Every room now has a unique trap. Living room laser maze. Tom strings bright red yarn across the room, creating a laser-like maze Jerry must navigate without tripping any wires. Bathroom bubble pit. Tom fills the bathtub with bubbles mixed with slippery soap. If Jerry slips and falls in, he'll be trapped in a frothy mess. Bedroom shadow trap. Using a flashlight, Tom creates a shadow puppet decoy mouse. When Jerry tries to sneak past, he'll find himself in a series of shadowy illusions, distracting him from the real threat. Kitchen carousel. The final room is a carousel of rotating plates and appliances, all designed to confuse and trap Jerry if he makes one wrong move. Tom steps back to admire his handiwork, feeling like a true mastermind. He has one last piece to add. He places a trail of cheese pieces throughout the house, leading Jerry from room to room. Satisfied, Tom hides and waits for his trap to unfold. Jerry's morning surprise. As the sun rises, Jerry wakes up, sniffing the air. He notices the distinct scent of cheese wafting from just outside his hole. Curious but cautious, he peeks out, seeing a small piece of cheese on the floor. Intrigued, Jerry follows the trail, moving from one piece of cheese to the next, slowly realizing it leads him deeper into Tom's maze. Entering the living room laser maze. The first stop on Tom's labyrinth is the living room laser maze. Jerry pauses at the entrance, noticing the red yarn crisscrossing the room. He knows one wrong step will trigger the entire setup, but with his small, nimble body, he's confident he can make it through. Jerry squeezes and contorts, ducking and weaving between the lasers with ease. But Tom anticipated this and has hidden small bells on certain yarn pieces. As Jerry brushes against one of the bells, it rings, alerting Tom to his location. Tom sneaks up behind, ready to pounce, but just as he lunges, Jerry performs a last-second dive, narrowly avoiding Tom's claws. Tom gets tangled in his own laser maze, allowing Jerry to escape to the next room. The bathroom bubble pit. Now Jerry enters the bathroom, where he's met with a floor full of slippery soap bubbles. At first, he tries to tiptoe around, but a misplaced paw sends him skidding across the tiles.